Captain Alina Vasquez stood in chains. Her hands were bound with metal cuffs that glowed blue. Her feet were locked to the floor. Around her stood 47 members of her crew. They were all humans. They were all prisoners. The courtroom was massive. It was built from white stone that seemed to shine from inside. Thousands of Valorians sat in the gallery above, watching with their large silver eyes. They had pale blue skin and tall, thin bodies. They did not move. They did not speak. They only watched. High Adjudicator Sarath stood at the center of the room. He wore robes of pure black. His face showed no emotion. In his hand he held a glowing tablet that contained the list of crimes. He began to read. Captain Alina Vasquez of the Human Vessel Mercy's Hand. You and your crew are charged with the following crimes against the Valorian Empire: illegal crossing of sovereign borders, unauthorized biological research on Valorian citizens, violation of the sacred protocol of isolation, smuggling of foreign technology into quarantine zones, distribution of unapproved medical substances, interference with official government operations. He paused. The courtroom was silent. There are 17 additional charges, Sarath continued. Each one carries the penalty of death. Alina looked at her crew. Dr. Samuel Okonkwo stood to her right. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had spent his whole life helping sick people. Now he stood accused of crimes that could cost him his life. Lieutenant James Chen stood to her left. He was young and strong. He had piloted their ship through enemy fire to deliver medicine to dying children. These were not criminals. These were heroes. But the Valorians did not see heroes. They saw invaders. 5 years ago, Alina had made a choice. A terrible plague was killing the Valorian people. Their government had closed all borders and refused help from anyone. Millions were dying every day. Alina received a desperate message from inside Valorian space. Someone was begging for help. She could have ignored it. She could have followed the rules. She could have let an entire species die because their government was too proud to ask for help. But Alina was human. And humans do not let people die when they can save them. She led her ship across the border. Her crew developed a cure. They landed on dying worlds and gave medicine to anyone who needed it. They saved billions of lives, and now those same people wanted to kill her for it. High Adjudicator Sarath finished reading the charges. He looked at Alina with cold silver eyes. How do you respond to these charges? He asked. Alina lifted her chin. Her voice was calm and clear. Before I respond, she said, I would like to ask the court one question. Sarath's eyes narrowed. You may ask, how many Valorians are alive today because of what my crew did? The courtroom stirred. Whispers spread through the gallery like wind through grass. Sarath raised his hand for silence. That question is not relevant to these proceedings, he said. Not relevant? Alina's voice grew stronger. We are on trial for saving lives. How is the number of lives we saved not relevant? You are on trial for breaking the law, Sarath replied. Your intentions do not matter. Your results do not matter. Only your actions matter. And your actions were crimes. Alina shook her head slowly. Then your laws are broken. The gallery erupted. Valorians shouted in anger. Some shouted in support. Guards moved to restore order. Sarath slammed his staff against the floor 3 times. The sound echoed like thunder. He commanded. The room fell quiet. In the upper gallery, a Valorian man watched the scene below. His name was Theron Vex. He was an ambassador. He wore fine robes and sat among the most important officials of his government. But his heart was heavy with guilt. 5 years ago, Theron had done something that could destroy him. When the plague was killing his people, he had secretly sent a message to human space. He had begged them to come. He had given them the biological information they needed to create a cure. Without him, the humans would never have known about the plague. Without him, billions would have died. If the court discovered what he had done, he would be standing in chains next to Captain Vasquez. Theron watched Alina speak with such courage. She was willing to die for what she believed. She had risked everything to save strangers, and now his government wanted to execute her for it. What kind of people kill their own saviors? Sareth turned to the prosecution table. A young Valorian official stood and activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the courtroom. The court will now view evidence of the defendant's crimes, the official announced. The images showed Elena's ship, the Mercy's Hand, approaching Valorian space. Warning signals flashed on the screen. The Valorian Border Patrol had sent 17 messages ordering the ship to turn back. 17 warnings that the humans had ignored. Then the recording played audio from inside Elena's ship. Her voice filled the courtroom. I don't care what their laws say. Those people are dying and we can help. Full speed ahead. The gallery gasped. Elena closed her eyes. She remembered that moment. She remembered the fear in her crew's faces. She remembered the determination in her own heart. She had known she was breaking the law. She had done it anyway, and she would do it again. Sareth smiled. It was a cold smile, like ice cracking. The defendant has condemned herself with her own words, he said. She admitted she knew our laws. She admitted she broke them deliberately. There is no defense for this. Elena opened her eyes. She looked directly at Sareth. You are right, she said. I knew your laws. I broke them deliberately, and I would break them again tomorrow. Because your laws were killing your people, and someone had to stop it, the courtroom exploded into chaos. Guards rushed forward. Officials shouted orders. In the gallery, Valorians argued with each other. Some demanded death for the humans. Others demanded their release. Theron Vex sat frozen in his seat. He watched Captain Vasquez stand tall despite her chains. He watched her face show no fear despite the death sentence that awaited her. She was the bravest person he had ever seen, and she was going to die because of a message he had sent? Sareth restored order once again. His face was dark with anger. This trial will continue tomorrow, he announced. The prosecution will present additional evidence. The defendants will learn that in the Valorian Empire, no good deed goes unpunished. He turned and walked away. Guards came to take the prisoners back to their cells, as Elena was led past the gallery. She looked up at the thousands of Valorians watching her. Many of them were plague survivors. Many of them were only alive because of her crew's sacrifice. She wondered how many of them would speak for her. She wondered how many of them would stay silent while she died. The doors closed behind her. The courtroom slowly emptied. But the questions she had raised hung in the air like smoke. What kind of laws punish people for saving lives? And what kind of people follow those laws? The second day of the trial began with Dr. Samuel Okonkwo taking the witness stand. He was 63 years old. He had spent 40 years of his life as a doctor. He had saved more lives than he could count. And now he stood accused of crimes that could end his own life. The prosecutor approached him with confidence. She was a young Valorian woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She believed she would break this old human easily. She was wrong. Dr. Okonkwo, she began. You were the chief medical officer on the Mercy's Hand. You created the cure that was illegally distributed to Valorian citizens. Is this correct? Samuel nodded slowly. I created a cure that saved billions of lives. Yes, a cure that was never approved by Valorian medical authorities. The cure medical authorities were dead, Samuel replied calmly. The plague killed them in the first month. There was no one left to approve anything. The prosecutor paused. She had not expected this answer. Tell me about the plague, Samuel continued. Would you like to know what really happened? Would you like to know what your government tried to hide? The gallery stirred. High Adjudicator Sarath leaned forward in his seat. This was not how witnesses were supposed to behave. You will answer only the questions asked, the prosecutor said. Then ask me the right questions, Samuel replied. Ask me why 3 billion Valorians were infected within 6 months. Ask me why entire planets went silent. Ask me why your government chose to let its people die rather than ask for help. The prosecutor turned to Sareth. I request that this witness be silenced. But before Sareth could respond, Captain Vasca spoke from the defendant's area. The defense calls Dr. Okonkwo as our witness, she announced. He has the right to tell his full story. Sherritt's face darkened with anger. But the law was clear. Witnesses for the defense could speak freely. He waved his hand in permission. Samuel took a deep breath. Then he began to tell the true story of the Valorian plague. 5 years ago, he said, a new disease appeared on your outer colony worlds. It spread through the air. It killed within days. Your government detected it early. They had a choice. They could ask the galaxy for help. They could work with other species to find a cure. Instead, they chose the protocol of isolation. Pause to let the words sink in. The protocol of isolation is an ancient law. It says that when plague strikes, Valorian space must be sealed. No one enters. No one leaves. No one asks for help. Your people believe this protects you from outside contamination. But it does not protect you. It kills you. The gallery was completely silent now. Every Valorian was listening. In 17 previous outbreaks across your history, the protocol of isolation was used. In every single case, the affected colonies died completely. Every man, every woman, every child. Your protocol has never saved anyone. It only ensures that when you die alone. A Valorian woman in the gallery began to cry. She remembered the plague. She remembered the fear. Samuel continued. Your government knew the protocol was failing. They had reports showing that 94% of your population would die if nothing changed. But they refused to ask for help. They believed that dying was better than admitting weakness. He shook his head slowly. What kind of pride is worth more than the lives of children? The prosecutor tried to interrupt. This is not relevant to the charges. It is the only thing that is relevant, Samuel replied. You want to execute us for saving you? The galaxy deserves to know what we saved you from. He turned to face the gallery directly. A young Valorian scientist named Kira managed to send a message before she died. She worked at a research station in the outer colonies. She watched her colleagues die one by one. She knew her government had abandoned them. So she broke the law. She sent a transmission to human space. She begged us to help. Samuel's voice grew heavy with emotion. I received that message. I heard her voice. She was crying. She said that children were dying in the streets. She said the hospitals were full of bodies. She said her government had stopped responding to their calls for help. He wiped his eyes. What was I supposed to do? Follow your laws and let them die? I am a doctor. I took an oath to help people. I could not ignore that message. Captain Vasquez stood up. Tell them about the mission, Samuel. He nodded. We had 18 days to develop a cure. 18 days while traveling through hostile space. I worked without sleep. My team worked without rest. We used biological data that was smuggled to us by a Valorian ally. Someone inside your government knew you needed help, even if your leaders refused to ask. In the gallery, Ambassador Theron Vex felt his blood run cold. Samuel was talking about him. The data he mentioned was the data Theron had sent. We manufactured 700 million doses of the cure aboard our ship, Samuel continued. We landed on dying worlds. We gave medicine to anyone who needed it. Sometimes we were welcomed as saviors. Sometimes we were shot at by your military forces. We kept working either way. His voice cracked. I remember the children's hospital on V4. We arrived too late for the adults. They were all dead. But the children were still fighting. 2,000 children, dying alone, with no one to help them. Tears ran down his face. My team worked for 36 hours without stopping. We saved every single one of those children. Every single one. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of crying. Many Valorians in the gallery were weeping openly. Those children are 15 years old now, Samuel said. Some of them are probably in this courtroom today. Some of them might be watching their saviors stand trial for the crime of keeping them alive. He turned to High Adjudicator Sereth. You call us criminals? You say we broke your laws? You are right. We broke every law you had, and we would break them again. Because your laws were wrong. Your laws were killing innocent people, and we could not let that happen. Sareth sat motionless. His face showed no emotion, but around him the mood of the courtroom had changed. The prosecutor looked uncertain. The officials looked uncomfortable. The people in the gallery looked at the human prisoners with new eyes. These were not invaders. These were heroes. But Sareth was not finished. "A moving speech," he said coldly. "But speeches do not change facts. You broke our laws. You invaded our space. And now you will face the consequences." He stood and addressed the court. "The prosecution has additional evidence to present. Evidence of a crime so serious that no speech can excuse it." He activated a holographic display. An image appeared showing a crashed shuttle on a barren landscape. Beside the shuttle were the ruins of an ancient stone structure. "During your illegal mission," Sareth announced, "one of your shuttles crashed on the sacred moon of Villar Prime. It destroyed the Temple of First Light. This temple was 5,000 years old. It was the holiest site in our civilization." The gallery gasped in horror. "The penalty for desecrating holy ground," Sareth continued, "is death. And for this crime, there is no defense." Lena looked at her crew with confusion. She had not known about this. No one had told her about a crashed shuttle or a destroyed temple. What else had happened during those desperate days that she did not know about? And could anything possibly excuse the destruction of the Valorians' most sacred place? The revelation about the temple changed everything. The courtroom buzzed with angry whispers. The Valorians in the gallery stared at the human prisoners with renewed hatred. Even those who had been moved by Dr. Okonkwo's story now looked uncertain. The Temple of First Light was sacred. It was the place where ancient Valorians first looked at the stars and dreamed of reaching them. For 5,000 years it had stood as a symbol of everything the Valorian people believed in and the humans had. "Destroyed it," Captain Vasquez turned to her crew. Her face was pale. "Who was flying that shuttle?" she asked quietly. Lieutenant James Chen stepped forward. He was 28 years old. He had been the youngest pilot on the mission. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "It was me, Captain. I was the pilot." Lena looked at him with confusion and concern. "Why didn't you tell me?" "There was no time," James replied. "Everything happened so fast. And afterward, it didn't seem to matter. We had saved so many people. I thought the temple was just collateral damage." High Adjudicator Sareth smiled coldly. "Collateral damage. That is what humans call the destruction of our holiest site. Collateral damage." James turned to face the judge. His jaw was tight with determination. "May I explain what really happened that day?" Sareth waved his hand. "Please. Explain how you accidentally destroyed a 5,000-year-old temple." James walked to the witness stand. He stood tall despite his chains. "I was carrying emergency medical supplies," he began. "There was a monastery on the sacred moon. 300 priests lived there. They were all infected with the plague. They were all dying." He paused to steady his voice, crossed into the restricted zone around the moon. "I knew it was forbidden. I did it anyway because people were dying and I could help them. That is what we do. That is what humans do." The gallery listened in silence. "Your military intercepted me. They sent for fighters to shoot me down. They fired without warning. My engines were destroyed. My shuttle was falling. I had about 10 seconds to decide where to crash." James closed his eyes as he remembered that terrible moment. Below me there were 2 targets. On the left was the Temple of First Light, ancient stones, empty building. On the right was the monastery, 300 living people inside. He opened his eyes and looked directly at Sareth. "One chose the temple. I crashed into sacred stones instead of sacred lives, and I would make that choice again. Every single time." The courtroom erupted. Some Valorians shouted in anger. Others shouted in support. "High Adjudicator." Sareth slammed his staff against the floor for silence. "You expect us to believe this story?" he demanded. "I expect nothing," James replied. "I'm telling you what happened. The 300 priests are still alive. Ask them. They watched my shuttle fall. They watched me choose their lives over your temple." Sarath's eyes narrowed. He had not expected this defense. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, something remarkable was happening. Thousands of Valorians had gathered in the plaza. They were not angry protesters demanding human blood. They were plague survivors. They were the families of people who had been saved. They were children who had grown up only because humans had broken the law to help them. They carried signs that read, "They saved us, and justice is not revenge." They chanted for the humans to be released. Every hour, more people arrived. The guards watched nervously. They had never seen anything like this. Inside the courtroom, Ambassador Theron Vex sat frozen in the gallery. His secret was weighing on him like a stone. He had sent the distress call that started everything. He had provided the biological data that made the cure possible. Without him, the humans would never have known about the plague, and now they were going to die for responding to his message. That night, Theron sat alone in his apartment. His daughter Kira found him staring out the window at the crowds below. She was 15 years old. She had been 10 when the plague struck. She was only alive because of the humans. "Father," she said softly, "are you all right?" Theron did not answer at first. Then he said, "Those people down there saved your life. They saved billions of lives. And our government wants to kill them for it." Kira sat beside him. "I know. It isn't fair." "It's worse than unfair," Theron whispered. "It's wrong. Everything about this is wrong." He turned to look at his daughter. She had her mother's eyes. Her mother had died in the first wave of the plague, before the humans arrived, before there was any hope. "What would you do," he asked, "if you had to choose between your own safety and doing what is right?" Kira thought about this carefully. "I would do what is right," she said finally, "because that is what the humans did. And look how many people are alive because of their choice." Theron nodded slowly. His daughter was wiser than she knew. The next day, the trial took an unexpected turn. A shuttle landed at the courthouse carrying an important visitor. Counselor Myra Odin had arrived from the Galactic Council headquarters. She was a diplomat who represented dozens of species from across the galaxy. Her presence meant that the trial was now being watched by the entire civilized universe. Sareth was not pleased. He did not want outside interference. But he could not refuse a representative of the Galactic Council. Myra Odin entered the courtroom. She was a tall woman from the Kellan species. Her skin was deep green and her eyes glowed with golden light. She walked with confidence and authority. "I request permission to address the court," she announced. Saroth frowned. "This is a Valorian matter. The Galactic Council has no authority here." "I am not here to assert authority," Mira replied calmly. "I am here to provide information. Information that this court needs to hear." After a long pause, Saroth nodded. "You have 5 minutes." Mira walked to the center of the courtroom. She activated a holographic display that showed a document covered in official seals. "This is a classified Valorian government report from 5 years ago," she said. "It was created during the plague. It projected what would happen if no outside help arrived." She let the document speak for itself. Numbers and graphs appeared in the air. Death tolls, infection rates, population projections. "According to your own government's analysis," Myra continued, "without outside intervention, the plague would have killed 94% of the Valorian population." The courtroom fell absolutely silent. "Your species would have gone extinct. Your civilization would have ended. Your temples and your laws and your protocols would have meant nothing, because there would have been no one left to follow them." She turned to face Sareth directly. "The humans broke your laws." "That is true. But they broke your laws to prevent your extinction. They saved your entire species. And now you want to execute them for it." She paused to let her words sink in. "I have one question for this court. What law protects a civilization that would rather die than accept help? What law preserves a people who kill their saviors?" Saroth rose to his feet. His face was dark with fury. "Remove her from this courtroom," he ordered. "The Galactic Council has no right to lecture us about our laws." Guards moved toward Myra Odin, but she did not resist. She simply smiled. "The galaxy is watching," she said quietly. "Every species in the known universe is watching what you do next. They will remember. They will judge. She was escorted out of the courtroom, but her words remained behind. They hung in the air like smoke that would not clear. The Valorians had almost gone extinct. They had been saved by humans who broke every law to help them, and now they wanted to execute those same humans. The people in the gallery looked at each other with uncertainty. The judge looked at the prisoners with something that might have been doubt, but High Adjudicator Sereth had gone too far to stop now. "This trial will conclude tomorrow," he announced. "The prosecution will present its final evidence, and then justice will be served." He did not say whose justice. He did not say what it would cost, but everyone in that courtroom knew that tomorrow would change everything. The final day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed with more Valorians than ever before. Outside, the crowd had grown to tens of thousands. They stood in silence, waiting to learn the fate of the humans who had saved their species. High Adjudicator Sereth wanted this trial to end quickly. He wanted the humans condemned and executed before public opinion could turn further against him. But Captain Alina Vasquez had other plans. When she was called to present her final defense, she did not apologize. She did not beg for mercy. Instead, she attacked the very foundation of Valorian law. "I do not deny breaking your laws," Alina began. "I broke them knowingly. I broke them deliberately. And I stand before you today ready to explain why those laws deserve to be broken." The gallery stirred with surprise. No one had ever challenged Valorian law so directly. "Your protocol of isolation is not a law of protection," Alina continued. "It is a law of suicide. It exists to preserve your pride at the cost of your survival. For thousands of years, you have followed this protocol. And for thousands of years, it has killed you." She activated a holographic display showing historical records. "I have studied your history. In the past 500 years, there have been 17 plague outbreaks across Valorian colonies. 17 times your government enacted the protocol of isolation. 17 times you sealed your borders and refused help." She paused to let the weight of her next words sink in. "In all 17 outbreaks, the affected colonies died completely. Not a single survivor. Not one. Your protocol has a perfect record of failure. It has never saved anyone. It has only ensured that your people die alone." Murmurs spread through the gallery. Many Valorians had not known this history. Their government had kept it hidden. "During the recent plague," Alina continued, "your own scientists predicted extinction. They told your leaders that 94% of your population would die if nothing changed. And what did your leaders do?" Her voice grew hard with anger. "They did nothing. They sat in their comfortable offices and watched their people die. They had the ability to ask for help. They chose not to. They decided that their pride was worth more than your lives." High Adjudicator Sereth interrupted. "You have no right to criticize our government." "I have every right," Alina replied. "I watched your people die. I held the hands of children who were abandoned by their own leaders. I earned the right to speak about what your government did wrong." She turned to Dr. Okonkwo. "Samuel, show them what we found." Dr. Okonkwo activated another holographic display. This time it showed intercepted communications from the Valorian High Council during the plague. The messages were dated. They were authenticated. They were undeniable. The court watched in growing horror as the truth was revealed. The Valorian government had known. Protocol was failing. They had known their people were dying by the millions. They had received offers of help from human space and from other allied species. They had rejected every offer. One message showed a council member arguing that accepting help would make Valorians look weak. Another message showed a general saying that death was preferable to asking outsiders for assistance. A third message showed High Adjudicator Sereth himself voting to maintain the isolation, even after learning that extinction was likely. The gallery erupted in chaos. Ordinary Valorians were learning for the first time that their government had chosen pride over survival. Their leaders had watched them die and done nothing. Their laws had been used as an excuse to let millions perish. Sereth slammed his staff against the floor. "Silence. This evidence is illegally obtained. It cannot be admitted." "Illegally obtained?" Alina laughed bitterly. We obtained it while saving your people. Everything we did was illegal according to you. That does not make it wrong." The gallery refused to quiet down. Valorians were shouting at each other, at the judge, at the guards. The carefully controlled trial was falling apart in the middle of the chaos. Ambassador Theron Vex made his decision. He rose from his seat in the gallery. He walked slowly down the stairs toward the witness stand. Guards moved to stop him, but he waved them away with the authority of his position. "I wish to testify," he announced. The courtroom gradually fell silent. Everyone knew who Theron Vex was. He was one of the most respected diplomats in the Valorian government. What could he possibly have to say? Theron stood before the court. His hands were trembling, but his voice was steady. "Everything you have heard about the humans is true," he began. "They broke our laws. They invaded our space. They distributed unauthorized medicine. They destroyed our temple." He paused. "They did all of this because I asked them to." The silence that followed was absolute. 5 years ago, I was stationed at a diplomatic outpost near the border. I watched the plague spread. I watched our government do nothing. I watched my friends and colleagues die while our leaders debated protocol. Tears formed in his eyes. My wife was among the first victims. She died in my arms while I waited for help that never came. After she died, I made a choice. I sent a secret transmission to human space. I begged them to help us. I provided them with the biological data they needed to create a cure. He turned to face Alina. Without my message, they would never have known we were dying. Without my data, they could never have developed the cure. Every crime they are accused of, I enabled. If they are guilty, then so am I. Sereth stared at Theron with cold fury. "You committed treason." "I committed survival," Theron replied. "I chose to live. I chose to let my daughter live. I chose to let billions of people live. If that is treason, then I am guilty." He looked at the gallery. "My daughter Kira is 15 years old. She would be dead today if the humans had not come. She would be dead because our laws forbade anyone from helping her. I broke those laws, and I would break them again." The gallery exploded. Valorians rushed toward the witness stand. Some wanted to embrace Theron. Others wanted to attack him. Guards struggled to maintain order. The trial had become a riot. In the chaos, High Adjudicator Sarath made his move. He stood and raised both arms for attention. When the noise did not stop, he ordered the guards to fire warning shots into the ceiling. The loud blasts finally silenced the crowd. "This trial is concluded," Sarath announced. "The defendants have confessed to their crimes. Ambassador Vex has confessed to his crimes. There is no need for further deliberation," Lena shouted in protest. "You cannot do this. We have the right to a full defense." "You have had your defense," Sarath replied. "You have admitted breaking our laws. You have shown no remorse. You have even argued that our laws should be broken." He turned to face the gallery. "The verdict is guilty. On all charges? For all defendants." The crowd screamed. Some screamed in support. Most screamed in horror. "The sentence is death," Sarath continued. "Execution will take place at dawn tomorrow. This court is adjourned." Guards rushed forward to take the prisoners away. Alina fought against her chains, but it was useless. Dr. Okonkwo walked with quiet dignity. Lieutenant Chen kept his head held high. Ambassador Theron Vex was dragged away with the humans, now counted among the criminals. As Alina was led toward the door, she turned to face the crowd one last time. "We would do it again," she shouted. "Every time. Every law. Every rule. Because that is what humans do. We help. Even when it costs us everything." The door slammed. Shut behind her, the humans had 12 hours to live, and the entire galaxy was watching to see what would happen next. The night before the execution was the longest night in Valorian history. In their prison cell, Captain Alina Vasquez gathered her crew for what might be their final hours together. There were no tears. There was no despair. They had known the risks when they launched the mission 5 years ago. They had accepted them. Dr. Samuel Okonkwo sat in the corner writing letters by the dim light. He was writing to the children they had saved on Vethfor. He wanted them to know that he did not regret anything. He wanted them to live good lives and help others whenever they could. Lieutenant James Chen knelt in quiet prayer. He was at peace with his choices. He had saved 300 priests by destroying a temple. He would make that choice again without hesitation. Alina stood by the window, watching the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there was home. She wondered if she would ever see it again. No regrets? She asked her crew. No regrets, they answered together. In a separate cell, Ambassador Theron Vex sat alone. He had given up everything by confessing. His career was destroyed. His reputation was ruined. He would die alongside the humans he had helped. But at least he would die with a clear conscience. A soft sound made him look up. His daughter Kira had found a way into the prison. She stood before him with tears on her face. "Father," she whispered, "I came to say goodbye." Theron rose and embraced her. "You should not be here. It is dangerous." "I do not care," Kira replied. "I needed to see you. I needed to tell you that I am proud of you." Theron held her tightly. "I did what I had to do. I could not let them die for answering my call. I know." Kira pulled back and looked into his eyes. "And I brought something that might help." "Oh." She pressed a small data chip into his hand. "What is this?" Theron asked. "Evidence," Kira said. "I have been investigating High Adjudicator Serath. I found something important." Theron activated the chip. Holographic documents appeared in the air. As he read them, his eyes widened with shock. During the plague, Serath had secretly violated the protocol of isolation. He had used his position to request alien medical supplies for his own family. While millions of ordinary Valorians died following the law, Serath had broken the same law to save the people he loved. He was a hypocrite. He demanded death for others who did exactly what he had done. The only difference was that the humans had saved strangers, while Serath had only saved himself. "This changes everything," Theron whispered. Kira nodded. "I have already uploaded it to every news network on the planet. By morning, everyone will know." Dawn approached. The execution platform had been built in the central plaza. High Adjudicator Serath stood in his ceremonial robes, ready to deliver justice to the humans who had defied Valorian law. But when he looked out at the plaza, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Tens of thousands of Valorians had gathered. They were not there to watch the execution. They were there to stop it. The crowd formed a living wall around the prison. They stood arm in arm, blocking every entrance. They chanted with one voice that echoed across the city. "They saved us. They saved us. They saved us." Among the crowd stood the priests from the monastery that Lieutenant Chen had protected. They wore their ceremonial robes and held signs that read, "He chose our lives over stones." The children from Vethfor were there too. They were teenagers now, healthy and strong. They held photographs of Dr. Okonkwo and Captain Vasquez. They owed their lives to these humans. Parents stood with babies in their arms. Those babies had been born only because their mothers survived the plague. Without the humans, an entire generation would never have existed. Serath ordered his guards to clear the crowd by force. The guards looked at each other uncertainly. Then they looked at the crowd. The guard captain said slowly, "Many of us are plague survivors too. Our families are alive because of those prisoners. We cannot attack our own people." Before Serath could respond, every screen in the city lit up with Kira's broadcast. The evidence of Serath's hypocrisy was displayed for all to see: documents, communications, proof that he had broken the same law he was using to execute. Others, the crowd's chant changed. "Justice for all," or "justice for none." Serath's face turned pale. His guards stepped away from him. His fellow officials looked at him with disgust and shame. He had condemned humans for saving strangers while secretly saving only himself. His justice was a lie. The Valorian High Council held an emergency session. They had no choice. The people were rising. The government was about to fall. They had to act. Within an hour, they announced their decision. High Adjudicator Sereth was removed from office and placed under arrest. A new panel of judges was assembled. The trial would be reconsidered. The new verdict came quickly. The humans had broken Valorian law. This was undeniable. But those laws were unjust. They had been used to let people die when help was available. They had been used to preserve pride at the cost of survival. The protocol of isolation was abolished forever. Never again would Valorians choose death over accepting help. The charges against Captain Vasquez and her crew were dismissed. More than dismissed. They were transformed into recognition. The humans were declared heroes of Velor. Their names would be remembered for generations. The prison doors opened. Alina Vasquez walked into the sunlight with her crew. Ambassador Theron Vex walked beside them, his daughter holding his hand. The crowd parted to let them pass. Then it closed around them. Strangers embraced them. Children ran forward to thank the people who had saved their lives. Old men and women wept with gratitude. For a moment, there was no difference between human and Valorian. There was only family. Counselor Mira Odin approached Alina with a smile. "The Galactic Council would like to offer you a position," she said. "Head of Humanitarian Response. It would give you official authority to do what you did illegally. You would have resources. You would have support. You would never have to break laws again." Lena considered the offer carefully. It was tempting. She could do so much good with that kind of power. But then she shook her head. "The day you need official permission to save lives," she said, "is the day you have already lost your humanity. I will keep doing what I do. No titles, no authority, just helping people who need it." Mira nodded with understanding and respect. "Then go, and may the stars guide you." Lena returned to her ship. The Mercy's hand was waiting in orbit, ready for its next mission. There was already a distress call coming from the outer rim. Someone needed help. As the ship prepared to leave, Alina stood on the bridge and looked down at Viller Prime one last time. She could see the crowds still celebrating in the streets. She could see the construction crews already working to rebuild the temple that Lieutenant Chen had destroyed. But this time, the temple would be different. It would not be a shrine to ancient stones and old traditions. It would be a memorial to the people who had broken every law to save a civilization that wanted to die. The inscription was already being carved into the foundation. Alina had seen the words that morning. They would remain there for thousands of years, a reminder of what had happened and what it meant. The inscription read, "They came when we needed them. They stayed when we rejected them. They saved us when we tried to kill them. May we become worthy of their humanity." Lena smiled. Then she turned to her crew. "Set course for the outer rim," she ordered. Full speed. Mercy's hand broke orbit and jumped to light speed. Another world was waiting. And other people needed help. Another set of laws might need to be broken. And Captain Alina Vasquez would break every single one of them. Because that is what humans do. They help. Even when it costs them everything.